let me just start moving along. Just a little bit of housekeeping so you understand how I have planned this webinar today. I'm going to try to be going back and forth between my PowerPoint presentation, and I want to show you in the software itself what is happening with this tool. My most important driving reason to do this webinar today is because the Toposolids tool is one of the tools that has changed immensely in the past 3 releases of Revit. They did the whole big revamp in 2024. So everything that was in the topo surfaces before and up until 2023 disappears completely in 2024. I mean, my advice is if you can skip that version in terms of Toposolids, you're going to be nicely surprised in 2025 and 2026 because in 2024 they stripped the tool from a lot of stuff. That it had a lot of functionality that it had before, and I mean, I hope Autodesk will pardon me what I'm going to say next, but the Toposolids in 2024 is the ugly child in the block. 2025, they finished writing the new functionality into the tool. And in 2026, they stabilize it. So let's go into it more precisely. So first of all, you can add to a Toposolid, you can add property lines, you can add parking and site components. So basically, it's a tool that is designed for site design. I hope you were all aware of that. The Toposolids, as they're called nowadays, they allow you to use defined elevation points, or they allow you to use imported data. There's 2 ways of importing data to create the Toposolid. You can bring in a DWG that was created by a surveyor that has contour lines that are at different elevations. And when I say that, let me jump right away into Revit. First of all, in the Revit interface, if you go to the massing and site tab, you will find that you can create either a Toposolid from a sketch, or you can create from an import. If you're creating it from a CAD file, right? Let me go to the Insert tab and go to the Import CAD, and you want to use the Import CAD command when you are creating a Toposolid. I'm not going to create one here right now, but keep in mind that the currently only position needs to be unchecked, because if you don't know, let me transmit this knowledge to you. Putting a check marker here where it says currently only flattens out your DWGs. The other thing that you want to do when you're bringing in a surveyor file with contour lines, you want to uncheck the create lines that are slightly off axis. I always recommend to leave that checked by default. But if you're bringing in contour lines, a CAD file with contour lines, please uncheck it, because that is the only situation where lines might be slightly off axis on purpose. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to show you on the interface. Let's go back to my PowerPoint. So the amount of points is, as you can see, huge, right? So let me point that out. You can go from 10,000 to 50,000 points for bringing in a for creating a Toposolid. The other thing that changed, and if you were using topo surfaces prior up to 2023, the folding lines, right? Before this revamping of the Toposolids, topo surfaces in Revit, used to not give you really contour lines. They would give you this triangulation of lines that was very confusing, the triangulation between the points. Nowadays, it is giving you actual contour lines. Okay. So, Toposolids elements nowadays, they can be cut by other geometry, and they can host a whole bunch of elements like site components, parkings, railings, and floor-based elements. So let me go back into the Revit interface, and let me show you how you would go about creating a Toposolid from a sketch. Like many other things that you do when you're working in Revit, you can define a type. I'm just going to use this grassland. And the first thing that you want to do is create a boundary line.
Hey, Sandra, we have a question. Maybe.
Yes.
Let me read it. How to cut off the button of a Toposolid mass above 0 level to avoid a huge mass in the model?
Sorry, come again?
How to cut off the bottom of a Toposolid mass above 0 level to avoid a huge mass in the model, i.e. if grade is at level elevation of 250?
Are you I mean, I bounced the question back to you. Are you creating that Toposolid out of a CAD file? Because if that's so, you need to edit that out in the CAD file, or here in Revit, just reduce the boundary and go and edit the sub points and start reducing the Toposolid.
He says yes.
It's coming from a CAD file?
Yeah.
Then my point of view is try to edit the CAD file in CAD before bringing it into Revit. Control that in CAD before coming into Revit.
Thank you.
So first you set your boundary line, and this is what I'm talking about. You set the boundary line. When you come at many times when you're using, coming back to the question that was asked regarding CAD files, I always, when I get the CAD file from a surveyor, or when I'm using CAD files in Revit, I always clean them up. Always. Make sure that it is showing what you wanted before you bring it into Revit. Do a little bit of cleanup, do a little bit of pre-editing. Okay? So, back to my little demo here. This is my boundary line, and one of the things that you're going to see, and if you're seeing the floor tool lately in Revit, this top area of the Toposolid that I just created, the tools will look very similar to tools that you find in the floor and roof command, okay? And nowadays you can grab points from a Toposolid and bring them into a floor, or vice versa. That was introduced in 2026. So I'm going to go and modify some elements, and I'm going to grab the split line and change. Now, when you define that you want to change the elevation of a point, you can always define the elevation base. So I'm going to set here the elevation base up to 20 feet. And really quickly, I'm going to create a surface here so that you can see the new tools and how this has changed. So the first thing that you see is that it creates automatically contour lines that are visible and that they are recognizable as contour lines. Right? It's not as it used to be that it does a triangulation. That was what I was trying to explain before. So with that, I can start adding points. And when you start adding points, again, notice the options that we have. So I'm going to choose absolute. My elevation is going to be the project base point, and I'm going to start by 2 feet intervals and start adding points just to create a quick. So notice how my contour lines start getting shaped, and I don't get that weird triangulation that was very strange to read. I mean, before the tool had those triangulation elements. Okay, so at 6, oh my God, sorry, that was no bueno. Here at 6 feet. But let me edit before I go on. Let me edit these guys because I didn't want them at 6 inches. I wanted them at 6 feet. My bad. There we go. So notice how easy also it becomes to edit Toposolids within the software itself. Right, you can see it's just adding points and you can edit the elevation of your points. And I'm going to come back to this quite often in this presentation. So at 8, one here, one here. Just a simple surface. Just bear with me 1 second. I didn't want to have this pre-prepared because I wanted you to see how easy this has become. I mean, I know this is something that is not new to the software, but the visualization of this used to be so much more complex and not so clear in its execution. And one more set of points to finish reaching the gap, and it's going to have a very high elevation here at the end. This is good enough. So once my surface is done, and let me get rid of this, and let me show you in a 3D how this is looking. So really quick, right? So part of the things that Toposolids have now, let me just tell my views. So back to my PowerPoint, the next point that I wanted to talk about is how you can cut the geometry and perform Boolean operations. And this has to do with a tool that was there before, which were the building paths. But building paths were a little bit clumsy to edit, right? And to me, this is a huge improvement to the software because now the replacement of building paths in the software nowadays looks as follows. So if I go to the architecture tab and I'm going to just place a floor item, and I'm going to place it at 4 feet elevation here somewhere. And when I finish, just a warning, Revit is going to scream at me. And it's going to scream at me because it's going to tell me that I have 2 elements in the same space. And you know, Revit gets a little bit freaky about it. So don't be too worried about it, because if I select the topo surface now, I can excavate. And I can choose, and this is the Boolean operation I was talking about, I can choose to excavate by that floor element. Okay, so once I do that, the other thing that I can do now to topo surfaces is that I can create subdivisions, which is a different topo surface. And in 2026, now I can define where that element is going. So it allows me to create roads that are going to come up to that topo surface. So let's create a little subdivision. Let me change and do that as a concrete path. And I am going to zoom in here. I'm just going to do something very simple. And I'm going to do a rectangular concrete path that is coming up to my building. And when I finish, the subdivisions, they are part of the toposolid. They adapt themselves to the height of the toposolid, but they behave as an independent element. And I could push it up. Let's say I push it up 1 foot. Sorry, it needs to be a little bit smaller. Let's push it up by 6 inches. There we go. And here you can see how it came up by 6 inches, and those are subdivisions. Let's show this in a little bit more colorful way so it is more visible to you. Sorry, not in this view, my bad. Here, in the 3D view. There you go. So the other thing that this does for you is that now you can select the topo surface and you will see at the bottom of the properties, you will see the excavation. Okay, and you will see the two elements that represent the excavation volume. Okay, so this functionality is brand spanking new. Let me host a railing element onto my topo surface. So I can pick the host. Actually, no, where am I? I'm here. Let me just do a little railing here and finish the command. And right now I can pick the host after the fact and bring it here. And I don't know if you saw it jump up and host itself to the Toposolid, whereas before it was going flat. Okay, so that is the next point I wanted to make in the software itself. So I just show you how to create subdivisions. Very cool to creating roads or pathways going from on your terrain, and any changes that you do on the terrain on your Toposolid, the subdivision is going to follow those changes. You can create graded regions, and when you create graded regions, it is going to give you the land movement. As I just showed you, you can create excavations, not only with floor elements, but you can also use the shaft tool. And you can create a toposolid to excavate out of another toposolid through Boolean operations. And then you can add parking components and you can add site elements. Okay, so a little bit back to my Revit demo. Let's add a couple of parking components here on the path that I created. So I can choose a parking component here, and I can place a couple of them in my and I need to repath them. Just let me make this a little bit transparent so that I can rehost them up here, and now you can see them right in my 3D view, and they become easier to manipulate. So I can grab this guy and stretch it out, and there, everything much clearer. Okay, the last element that I wanted to show you that you can do with Toposolids is add you can label your contour lines. I'm going to just really quickly create a new label. I don't like the 1/16 of an inch size of text. I think that becomes unreadable at some point. So let me make it a standard readable size, which is 3/32 of an inch. Again, this is just general information. The minimum size of text that you want to have in your drawings is 3/32 of an inch, because that is the smallest size that is comfortable to read. Anything that is smaller than that, if you print with a plotter, is going to come out as a smudge of ink. And that is how you add a contour line, a contour label to your Toposolids. So with that, and I think we are up on our time. Let me just, and obviously, I mean, you all know that you can add site components like trees and all that. And again, all can be hosted to that Toposolid element. And when you added the tree, you had to kind of move it up so that it would be in the right location. Nowadays, they can be placed on the Toposolid, and they are going to follow the inclination of the Toposolid. This is my slide for the contour lines. And let me open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Sandra, for this wonderful presentation. And as we wait for the question, I would like to remind everyone that if you want to learn any of these topics in detail, you can take a custom training with Sandra or someone else on our team. And we also offer group classes online. So we have also coming up next on our webinar calendar, real-time coordination with Civil 3D and BIM Collaborate Pro. That one will be on September 11 at 11 a.m. And then we'll have on September 25th, markups and Bluebeam for project managers. So yeah, I think you have the registration page on the right hand. You can see all of our webinar calendar there. And if you're interested in any of those, just register so you can get the on-demand recording, whether you can attend or not. And we have one question, Sandra. Let me read it to you. How can we see the existing versus new contours?
Well, I assume, Ru, you are asking about the grading tool. So basically, you create a Toposolid on top of a Toposolid when you need to grade it. So one of them needs to be placed in the existing phase, and then you can grade it and place it in the new construction. So let's place this guy in the existing, right? And then if you go to a graded region, right? We're going to create a brand new, and then here you have the brand new Toposolid, and you can just grade it however you want to. So I'm just going to move these points just a little bit to change it. Right, so when I finish, notice that you have your, and then it's just a matter of managing a view. Right now my view is showing all. I could just choose to change my view filter and choose show just the new, and then create a view that shows the existing. So I hope that answers your question.
Got it. Thank you, Sandra. And we were looking at our contact information. So in case you have any questions or inquiries, these are our contact numbers based on region. There you have at first our Watertown main office. And also you have there my contact information down below. And we'll be also, of course, be sending you an email after this webinar. So you can also reply to that. And we'll be sending you in that email the class schedule so you can check it out and see if there's anything there that calls your attention. And we have another question here. Let me read it. Is there a way to do the opposite of excavate when the floor slab is above the toposolid so it infills below the slab?
Yes, absolutely. Let me grab the slab and no, let me just create another slab. Let's leave that one be and let's create a floor slab that is going to be at 8 feet. And here, let's create it here somewhere. And finish this. So when you go to modify the Toposolid, right? There is, when I go add point, notice this snap XYZ. Okay, and I can come, and the only thing that you need to be aware of is that you want to make sure, and I teach this to all my students, read your status bar on the left bottom side of your interface. You want to make sure that you're snapping right? And notice how your Toposolid is coming up now. You see it here? Came down, came up. So that is how that is done. And now I made it go up. Let's just show here only the new stuff. There we go. Michael, does that answer your question?
I hope so. Thank you so much, Sandra. And do you know if we should expect any problems with Toposolid when upgrading from 2024 to 2025? Another question that we have.
Not between 2024 and 2025, because the tool was starting to change in 2024. So the functionality was beginning to be there. Now, regarding upgrading projects, I'm a little bit remiss, and this doesn't have anything to do with Toposolids, but I kind of tend to advise my students, unless there is a really pressing need to change the version of a project. If a project has been advanced in a certain version of the project, leave it there. Right? Finish it there until, I mean, that is why Autodesk allows you to have so many different versions of the software installed. Okay. Sometimes those upgrades, I mean, there is a way of translating building paths and everything that was prior to 2024 to this new functionality, but Mm, you see me getting a little bit queasy. Your specific question, Bernard, I would say from 24 to 25, you wouldn't get that many issues. Just because 24 was the infancy of the tool.
Got it. Thank you so much for the clarification. And yeah, I was saying that you will get the on-demand recording of this webinar. I think you will be receiving it tomorrow at 1 p.m. So yeah, if you, we also will be posting this on YouTube in case you want to send that to a colleague as well. And again, this is our contact information based on region. We hope you learn and clarify a few things today, and hopefully a few used ones. And yeah, thank you so much, Sandra, and thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I think we'll see you at our next webinar.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to my webinar today. And thank you for all your questions. And I hope to see you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.